President Trump meets with Democrats, and those Democrats say they cut a deal on DACA. But the president says no deal. We'll try to get to the bottom of what's going on here, and we'll play for you his latest controversial comments he just said 2 hours ago about, yes, yet again, Charlottesville. Then another day at the Senator Menendez corruption trial, and another day of the judge teeing off on the lawyers as they make their cases for and against the New Jersey Democrat. We were at the courthouse in Newark with the very latest. Also, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, multimillionaire. Some put his, basic value sitting at about $300 million. So the question is, why did the Treasury Secretary try to take government planes on his honeymoon, something that would have cost taxpayers $25 grand an hour? Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. President Trump, he hosted two top Democrats for dinner at the White House last night, and they talked about a number of issues, DACA among them. Border security also, the wall came up. What exactly did they agree to? Well, it depends on when you ask the question and who you ask. When the Chinese food and chocolate pie had been cleared away, it seemed the president and Chuck and Nancy, as he called them, had reached an understanding.
We're working on a plan for DACA. People want to see that happen.
We agreed to a plan to work out an agreement to protect our nation's dreamers.
But it didn't last long. First, a dust-up about that border wall after Senator Schumer and Congresswoman Pelosi said their agreement doesn't include money to fund the wall. The president clearing that up this morning.
The wall will come later, and the wall is going to be built. It'll be funded a little bit later.
But just hours later, more mixed messages.
We're not looking at citizenship. We're not looking at amnesty.
It's about everyone in our country having the opportunity to earn the path to citizenship, and that's what the bill does. It's an earned path to citizenship.
Conflicting accounts over a path to citizenship combined with downplaying from the Speaker of the House.
It was a discussion, not an agreement or negotiation.
All of it adding to uncertainty about what's in store for the 800,000 dreamers and the rest of Congress charged with figuring out what comes next.
Well, this sounds like a deal to make a deal. There is no deal currently made. And, of course, there are 535 members of Congress that weren't a party to the conversation.
Well, to put it politely, the right flipping out at the very thought of the president yet again working out a deal with Democrats to protect DACA and keeping them in the dark. Breitbart now calling the president Amnesty Don. How quickly they turn. Conservative lawmakers also speaking out. This is Congressman Steve King, Republican of Iowa, who had the following to say. Trump base is blown up, destroyed, irreparable, and disillusioned beyond repair. Tell me what you really think. But before we get to DACA, there's no day that can go according to plan with the president and talking points because we always get the 4 o'clock surprise. Well, today, that 4 o'clock surprise was the president on Air Force One repeating his both sides comment about the Charlottesville incident while in the air. This is what he had to say.
I think especially in light of the advent of Antifa, if you look at what's going on there, you have some pretty bad dudes on the other side also, and essentially that's what I said.
This, of course, comes in the heels of his meeting with South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate. They discussed Charlottesville just yesterday, and that's what the president was asked about. For his part here, when he heard about the president's comments, Scott said, quote, he is who he has been. Let me bring in our panel right now. Richard Brodsky, former Democratic New York State Assemblyman from Westchester, now senior fellow at Demos and a professor at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, who is kind of to join us from his joyful days in Newark at the Menendez trial. And Richard St. Paul, Republican strategist and former vice chair for the National Black Republican Association. And it's apropos to start there. Tim Scott has a meeting with the president, and after it, he could have given the president a pass, he could have averted, but especially if, and we don't have time to read the complete context of it, he says what we heard from the president before is who the president is. And after what the president, once again with an opportunity to say what was done at Charlottesville was reprehensible, he still does the both sides line. Does he not learn? Does he not care? Is he incapable of admitting that he made a mistake? what is it about him that even when he has other news that he's trying to put front and center, he can't keep not failing to step on his own lead and to drag himself back? This didn't help him today. I sure as hell hope he doesn't mean what he said, but you know, he's 70-some years old. He's got to take ownership for his words. But I got to imagine from your perspective, given the different titles you've held, more than disappointing.
Well, look, I mean, Tim Scott is right. I mean, he had an opportunity to say whatever he wanted to say about the president, but he took the high road in this case, Senator Scott, and say he is who he has been. I mean, this is a president who says what he believes, and if he believes that his inauguration was larger than that of President Obama, then that's what he believes. If he believes that, you know, both sides did something wrong, then that's what he believes.
But I'm not trying to relitigate this. We all know the facts. It is what it is. But clearly, his own party, overwhelmingly public sentiment, people don't believe that there's an equal comparison between the two. President came out, read the written statement saying how abhorrent it was, the white nationalists, and today, with natural disasters and everything in its wake where he could have moved on from this, he took the bait again and he went with it. And I don't know if it's a personality defect or really, Richard, this is what he really believes. What do you think it is?
Well, look, here's a president that was elected on who he was. I mean, he didn't hide who he was. He said what he believed. Remember when he first came out and he said that people in Mexico were rapists and killers?
Right, but did you think
and everybody
he
thought that was the
nationalists?
end? That people thought that was it. And he went on to win not only a Republican primary, but also the presidency.
But is that an indictment on your party or his supporters?
The president has not been a Republican or a Democrat. He's been a businessman and an opportunist, and therefore he is someone who wants to achieve his agenda.
Okay, but
what
you know
he
what?
promised.
I'll do this, and I'll
being
supplement.
him.
But that's not presidential what he said today.
It's
I don't
not-
care if Republican, Democrat, or whatever else. So this idea that he's a businessman, I don't know any businessmen who feel that same way. In fact,
I'm not
the
making any
business community-
excuses for his
Right.
for his behavior, but he's not normally.
So you don't think he
a
misspoke? You think he really believed what he said today?
He said it.
Unbelievable. All right, now I want to pivot to the other part of today because I'm still spinning, Richard, from the president's positions as it relates to DACA, from his meetings yesterday, the takeaway from people out of the room, the blowback that happens from the hard right today. Paul Ryan has a press conference which he not so gently reminds the president, you still need us here and you still need our votes. This will only come to a vote if we're included in the process. And then he backs away from it, bringing the wall up again. What was to be gained today?
Don't get tactics and strategy confused. He moves here, he moves there, he's hard to pin down. Forget about that. What's at stake here is a fundamental question about Donald Trump. Is he a hard right-wing reactionary in the Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell mode? Or is he, as Rich just suggested, some sort of a hybrid?
Save time because we're short on time. He's a transactional person and he's a transactional politician.
Transacting.
Okay, but if you're going to transact and you're trying to also send a message both last week with the debt limit and now today with DACA, you own it. So what does he do? He comes out and says, "Yep, I don't want these kids to be sent out," and overwhelmingly the public supports it. So what does he say today? No.
No, he said
there's no deal.
he said
I'm not
they
doing
were-
amnesty for these people. There's no citizenship, which is converse to what he said the night before.
No, it's not. He said that he would do a deal on DACA. DACA has never been a path to citizenship. No. Listen, you gotta listen to this guy because to some extent,
I'll tell you, the first guy of both parties who thinks that he has been remotely consistent in the last
hasn't
24
been
hours.
consistent.
People don't know where he's at. I don't see what he's gained by what he's done. The last day.
Uncertainty is a valuable commodity in a tough negotiation.
It hasn't worked for 8 months, this uncertainty, Dominic.
But he's changed. He's swerved.
Right, but
He's
my
now
only
making
point,
deals with
Dominic, is
Democrats.
take ethics out of this. Take, what people believe the right or wrong thing of policy is. He basically sent a message to Republicans last week. Fine, we're not getting something done. I'll go to the other guys if I have to. And then he tried to do the same thing today. But what did he do? Again, snatching, defeat from the jaws of victory, right? He manages to make this more muddled. He's ticked off Republicans. He's made Democrats think they can't trust him now because he's backed out on a deal. And his base, the one people who stood with him no matter what, he's infuriated. How has he remotely gained?
Steve King is not his base. Sorry, Don.
If it's okay, if you look at it from a scenario that you just laid out, one has to agree with you. Reason has to agree with your argument that you just laid out. But I think that he's not so much, he's an opportunist at the end of the day. He's going. I don't mean this in a bad way.
Okay,
he's going to the highest bidder.
Fair enough. But what
And
is
so,
it? What he's
and
doing?
so, no. And
You
what?
still got to close the deal.
Right, you got to close the deal. That's a very important point. Obviously, what happened, what it sounds like, is that the president agreed to this last night at their dinner. Overnight, somebody told him, remember we're about to talk, whoever's the last person in his ear. Somebody said, oh, wait a minute, Mr. President, this is an ongoing negotiation. He's saying we're holding out for more. So my guess is the deal has been cut, the parameters, but he's trying to get some more. But I think that he heard the criticism that he had ignored these young people that have done so much in this country, and he's trying to make the deal work.
Real quickly, Richard, I know we're going to hit a break. There's been 3 different photos in the last couple of weeks where you have a smiling Chuck Schumer in the private audience of the president without a Republican in sight. The optics of that, does it A, scare Republicans to say, I don't know who we're dealing with, we better get at the table with this guy to try and get the best deal we can? Or does it infuriate them so much, they're going to remind this president that he can't go around them, he's got to include them in this, and we better not see smiling Chuck like we see on our screen there.
No, the president definitely has to.
It's one or the other.
He definitely has to include Republicans. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it, because you can't just pass any law with just Democrats alone, obviously. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he's on the right course, I believe, because the American people put him into the presidency because they wanted to see progress.
He said. What he said.
Yeah.
So Democrats' worst nightmare is a Trump who's cutting deals and getting stuff done with Democrats and
Cutting
Republicans.
deals. So far, the only thing he's gotten
correct.
done is he extended the debt limit here for 3 months.
No.
Let's see. I want to see the details if DACA gets passed or if it doesn't. I've heard all the words like the repeal of Obamacare, and I'm still waiting on that. Coming up next, more fireworks in the Menendez trial today in Newark. Dominic's there. He'll share with us what's happening to the Democrat who's facing corruption charges and the judge today who lost it, slamming attorneys in the courtroom. We'll have more right after this.